North, one of the cardinal directions, generally represented by up on the compass rose, since it is what we comprehend as the top of our beloved planet Earth. It's a wonderful land of snow and ice, and a little more snow and ice, and if you haven't gathered already, it gets cold as fuck up here during winters. And Hokkaido is the northernmost main island of Japan. Welcome to Geography with Cheese. Trust me, there is a point to all of this, we'll get to that eventually. As some of you may know, I hail from the North European country of Finland, so I come to this anime of Hokkaido Gals with a point of view where freezing my balls off is commonplace and by no means a novelty. Admittedly, we don't have gyaru here, so there is that. And there are other differences too. For example, Hokkaido is not actually as far north as we are, hence not as cold on average, but they do get a lot more snow than us because of the unique combination of the humid Pacific air and the dry Siberian air colliding over the island. Meanwhile, here we just get the cold Siberian air and make do, usually with vodka. Now, you might be wondering, why is any of this relevant to an anime review? Have I finally lost my marbles? Potentially, but at least this once there is method to my madness, and it's not just a panda view time. A big problem of reviewing romcoms or other slice-of-life anime is finding something unique to talk about. I personally love romcoms and the way a good romance anime can make me feel, but being a man, I'm legally not allowed to talk about feelings. Therefore, my options were be generic or pick a different approach. So I chose to focus on the whole winter part. You know, what to do other than shovel snow and freeze to death. But before we dive into this gyaru-infested winter wonderland, a quick word from the channel partners over at vittujenkevat, who are still kind enough to offer me a cut of every purchase made with the link and code. So if you've ever found yourself in a dire need of a great gift to a life partner but boring old jewelry won't do, or you just want something funny to get for yourself, head over to vittujenkevat.fi by using the link in the description and browse their immaculate collection of stuff. All of which is naturally themed after genitalia, since dick jokes are the pinnacle of humour. Everything there is handcrafted and very high quality. Don't forget to use the code AddedCheese at checkout for a hefty 10% of your entire purchase. And now back to exploring the unusually high concentrations of gyaru in Japan's northernmost province. And before we even get to the meat and bones of the anime, I have one big issue to point out about Hokkaido Gals. It commits one of the cardinal sins of anime, the very rule that isekai writers should pay attention to if they ever want to exceed the general level of mediocre. It imitates other anime, rather than forging its own identity, and while it's nowhere near as bad as the great isekai checklist of doom, it's still very much there. Mainly, Hokkaido Gals tries to be the next My Dress Up Darling, which admittedly is great inspiration, but from that statement alone, you now know broadly everything that will be happening in the show. Then again, when I told you that it was a rom-com with gyaru in the name, you already knew that, so maybe I should just shut up and get on with it. Meet Tsubasa, the big city kid from Tokyo and our main character. For once, he isn't the annoying, terminally cringe self-inserty type, he's just a good kid, a bit awkward, but we've all seen much, much worse. He moves to Kitami in Hokkaido to escape his life of being the lame kid in Tokyo, and instead he seems kind of cool in comparison here, which, if I'm being honest, does feel a little condescending towards the people from the boonies, but you know. In the beautiful wintry wonderland of North Japan, he then meets the potential waifu candidates of the show. You have the high-energy blonde one, the awkward gamer girl one, and the white-haired one who is obsessed with Japanese culture, as well as the MILF. Since anything can be made better by the inclusion of a hot mom. Most of them naturally have massive tits. Gee, I wonder what the author was into. But on a serious note, this is everything you've seen before. The girls slowly start to like the boy, one by one, nobody ever says anything since in rom-com status quo is god and the characters are mostly not allowed to move on with their life. They're also forever 16, hence why the MILF is pivotal. But I do keep saying how a story is not really relevant in most slice-of-life-esque anime, but at its worst you get the checklist effect, which is somewhat present here too. However, Hokkaido Gals takes place in our world. Well, not really since it's an anime, but you know what I mean. The thing is, yes, the checklist is there, but a large part of it is the events that happen as the story progresses, like going out to a festival and the young struggles of exam season, all of which are very real events that take place every single year. Japanese festivals happen, schools surprise surprise have exams. But then, on the other hand, while the inclusion of the events themselves makes sense, the characters' reactions then ruin it all by being the most tired of tropes. Come exam season, Tsubasa is the super smart one, while Fuyuki is the dum-dum that can't do math, etc, etc, etc. Anyway, all of this is a crying shame, since the other parts of Hokkaido Gal are very interesting. At its core, it's a romcom that tries to bring attention to the slowly dying countryside of Japan, and more specifically the author's hometown of Kitami, and how the different parts of Japan can be massively, well, different from one another. Going shopping in Okinawan summer is undoubtedly a very different experience from doing the same in Sapporo during the height of winter. It's a message that honestly deserved better, but at least it's front and center in Hokkaido Gals. I already mentioned how Tsubasa is the big city kid seeing proper snow for the first time in his life, and those kinds of not only geographical but cultural differences are the main point of the anime, besides the gyaru of course. With the girls, Tsubasa gets to experience all the wonders of winter, like downhill skiing, ice fishing, and freezing his ass off both indoors and in a snowstorm. He even gets to see a girl's bra for the first time. Truly a wonderland. Unfortunately, I could not share the latter experience with you since YouTube says lingerie is too naughty. The point being, all of this is pretty well done. It's like you can actually experience winter with this anime. Not really. But the winter activities are pretty fun and surprisingly accurate. There are a bunch of little details you'd never think about unless you've experienced them firsthand. This girl strips to her underwear to wipe off the sweat she built during skiing. Okay, a bit weird to do it in a bus with open doors, but ignoring that and the blatant fan service, the average impression people have is that in winter it's cold, so how would you sweat when it's cold? But it's all a question of how you dress. Before frivolous activities in the snow, you should feel a little chilly unless you want to be drenched during whatever you're planning on doing, and skiing can be surprisingly demanding, especially if, like Tsubasa and Akino, you aren't used to it. And now I'm starting to feel weird talking about a girl sweating, so moving swiftly onwards. From skiing to fishing. Ice fishing to be precise, and honestly there isn't much to talk about here. It's ice fishing, it's a thing that people do, and while the Japanese way is slightly different from what we do here, it's mostly the same activity. You gently stroke your rod back and forth while looking at the hole for hours on end without ever actually getting anything out of it, unless you specifically enjoy the act of being oh so close yet so far from tasting the salty fishy goodness within. But other than the fun activities, okay, potentially fun activities you can do during months of winter, Hokkaido Gals does also touch on the other aspects of living in the north, such as snowstorms and late springs. Looks outside where it's still snowing at the end of April. Yeah, spring in Finland is cancelled this year. But the snowstorm bit is something I'm kind of two minds about. On the other hand, they can be quite nasty, like the anime shows, but in general it's nowhere near as big a deal as Tsubasa makes it out to be, at least not here in Finland. What I mean by that is, as a rule of thumb, during storms, sure it snows a lot and the wind can be extremely biting, but the weather is usually not actually that cold. And a storm so bad you'd lose your way in a city is 1 in a million. What you really want to look out for are the really cold days, especially if it's even slightly windy. It can be sunny outside and still absolutely brutal. -30 or even -35 degrees with the slightest breeze will see you in frostbites pretty damn quick, even if it's the nicest weather you've seen when viewing from indoors. But the late spring is something I absolutely loved about Hokkaido Gals. Things almost feel like they move at a slower pace the further north you go, something I experienced when moving away from southern Finland some years back, and that is an aspect of northern life the anime really does justice to. Which is nice, given how, well, average everything else in the show is. If anything, I was left wanting something more. Something with actual substance. Even the one big thing that was framed as if it would shake up the setting was then just written off as little more than a joke. It's an anime that does some things really well, and others, well, not so much. The characters work nicely together, like Fuyuki and Akino have some incredible scenes together, Bits where there is real emotion to a point where the romancy bits are pretty much the worst part of the show, simply due to the sheer amount of tropiness going on. The characters feel grounded and with real personality whenever there is nothing even vaguely lovey-dovey happening, and then all thought just vanishes and it's tired anime tropes galore, which can get incredibly frustrating. It almost feels like it wasn't supposed to be a rom-com to begin with, and then the romance was just thrown in as an afterthought. But even so, Hokkaido Gals isn't terrible, it isn't great either, and many things in the show can be a bit of an acquired taste, not least of which the art style. As much as I'd like to recommend it for the northern themes and the glimpse of incredible character moments, I can't really do so with good conscience. It's another one where if you already like the subject matter, it's fine enough, but falls short of being universally likable. 7 out of 10, only because I like rom-coms. And with that, thank you for watching. I do hope you enjoyed this. If you did, do all of the YouTube things of likes and comments and subscribes. All of your interactions are a worthy sacrifice to the algorithm god. You can also become a channel member if you so desire. I will try to give you content early if you are a channel member, as well as some other perks. Sorry, I've been a bit busy lately, so these have been a little delayed, let's say. Don't forget to check out the channel partners over at vittujenkevat.fi. And if you want more stuff from me, there are a bunch of social links in the description, like Twitter and Twitch and the kind of stuff like that. I do try to get a bit more active with streaming. Sorry if you followed me over there, it's been a bit busy with uni and stuff. Also, one part why the videos here have been a bit delayed. Anyway, next week we are gonna be touching on the new season of, what is it, spring now, of 2024. In the form of Konosuba, and I'm now going to start working on the spring animes, as well as doing some other stuff on the side, like I promised, High School Fleet, that sort of thing. Coming your way soon-ish, hopefully, TM. Anyway, with this, I have been Cheese, and I hope to see you next time. Ta-ta for now.